Penn State coming off a 4-5 season. I'm sure they're tired of hearing that, but it's resonating the entire offseason, including 0-5 out of the gate. Now, offensively, second in the Big Ten in total offense, but things weren't quite right. We got Marty Leap on the line from Black Shoe Diaries on SB Nation to help us break down Penn State for 2021 and hopefully a full season. Marty, how you doing?
Doing great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. And of course, the offense starts, as it does with most teams, at the quarterback position. Sean Clifford's got a ton of experience at this point. Will Levis, by the way, off to Kentucky, has a good shot at winning that job in the SEC. Clifford coming off a 9-interception season against 16 touchdowns. Your thoughts about his development? There's a lot of good, but there are some knocks on his ability to lead the team in huge games.
Yeah, Sean Clifford has always been a maddening quarterback, I think, for Penn State fans, because you see some of the throws he makes, you see that arm talent, you know he's got the tools, but he just continues to really struggle with going through his progressions. He will get very panicky and get some happy feet in the pocket. I think last year the almost running joke amongst Penn State fans was you knew the second he got pressure, he was going to roll to his left and just take the ball and run. Now, I am hopeful that with Mike Yurcich now in charge of the offense, no knock on Ricky Ronnie or Kirk Shiraka, Yurcich is the best quarterback coach that Clifford has had, and Yurcich is one of the probably 3 or 4 best offense coordinators in the country. You know, they paid a pretty penny to go get him, even after he got his severance package or whatever from Texas with the coaching staff down there getting fired. And I know he's a coordinator that James Franklin tried to get in the past and got outbid by Texas for him. So I'm hopeful that with Yurcich that'll help Clifford take some steps forward. This offense is going to have a lot of potential this season, but the biggest thing is they've got to cut back on the turnovers, and that all starts and ends with Sean Clifford. Like you said last year, 9 interceptions normally doesn't sound that bad, but when you look, it was only a 9-game season. He had a lot of problems with fumbles, a lot of sacks that he created for himself. If Clifford can improve his pocket presence this year with Yurcich, that's going to go a long way towards fixing a lot of the woes of Penn State's offense from last season.
Yeah, the interception total was tied for the top spot in the Big Ten, a top spot you don't want to be in. And even though second in the Big Ten in total offense, the scoring average wasn't as high as it has been under James Franklin, and also 7th in the Big Ten in yards per play. So they'd have to grind it out, which is a good mark, efficient in terms of efficiency on the offensive side, but you want more explosive plays downfield. Who's going to back up Sean Clifford?
That's a good question. It most likely, I would assume QB2 is going to be Taquan Roberson, who is going into his redshirt sophomore season. Roberson has not played a bunch. 2 years ago, the 2019 game against Rutgers, he got a series at the end. And last season, I know there was one game he came in for a few snaps. I don't think he's actually officially attempted to pass yet in his career, but he looks like the backup. The only other scholarship quarterback on the roster is true freshman Christian VR. I like VR a lot. I think he's got some good tools to work with, but he's a true freshman who did not play last season due to his school season being canceled from COVID. So you're definitely not – you never want to look – to throw a true freshman quarterback to the fire before they're ready, especially a true freshman quarterback who has not played in 2 years. So it's as much as there's question marks about Clifford and his game, Penn State needs Clifford to get it together and needs him to have a big season, because if he doesn't, or God forbid he gets injured, this team could be in a lot of trouble at the quarterback position.
Bottom 10 in the nation in fumble rate, meaning they lost fumbles at a high rate last year. Smaller sample size with 9 games, but a lot of people believe that fumbles to a certain extent are luck in regards to recovering them. So that might be a good sign for Penn State, actually, that they have better luck this year. Maybe not fumbling as much, and number 2, recovering some of those fumbles. We got Marty Leap on the line breaking down Penn State football on offense for us. Of course, the running back room from a recruiting standpoint, and please check out our video with Marty concerning the recent haul at Penn State for the 2022 class. But the running back recruiting has been phenomenal. Unfortunately, Journey Brown with an injury that forced him to retire before last season. Devin Ford, Noah Kane, 2 guys that came in at the same time as top 5 running backs in the nation, have contributed to a certain extent. I think it was surprising for a lot of people outside of the Penn State circle that it wasn't one of those 2 guys. And of course, Noah Kane got hurt on like the first series against Indiana last year after being a pretty major factor in 2019. But that Kevon Lee was the leading rusher last year.
Yeah, the running back injuries definitely were a huge factor with some of the offensive struggles last season as well. Like you said, fumbles and failing to convert in the red zone were probably the two biggest problems the offense had. And, you have to think if you have an experienced back in there like Journey Brown, or even if Noah Cain doesn't get hurt, it was literally like the third play of the game that he got hurt. It's the entire season. You look at that Indiana game, for example, and not to keep piling on Devin Ford for this, because I'm sure he's heard about it to no extent in the last year, but that play late in that game, when Indiana was trying to let Devin Ford score and he didn't realize it till it was too late and couldn't stop his momentum and fell into the end zone. A Noah Cain there probably gets the first down, goes down. Penn State kneels it twice. The game's over. They win, and they win that Indiana game. The season may have gone in a totally different direction than it did. But with Kevon Lee, yeah, he was a guy who came in as a part of a two-back class again last year with he and Keziah Holmes, two four-star guys out of Florida. And I don't think anyone expected Lee to make the impact he did as a freshman, especially because his senior of high school, he was unable to play. He had to transfer schools because there was something weird with the school he was at. His credits were not going to transfer to make him NCAA eligible or something strange like that. And in the state of Florida, if you transfer schools past a certain date on the calendar year, you're not eligible for sports that season. So he had to sit out his senior year, and you never would have known it. He looked awesome as a true freshman. So I think the running back room this year could still be one of the better ones in the Big Ten, assuming they're healthy. Noah Cain is back. He's healthy. And from some of the workout videos and things that Penn State has released, he looks as good as ever. You got to imagine Lee's going to take a step forward. And even Keziah Holmes, the other freshman who came in with Lee, he flashed at times last year while he was a highly rated back. He's got a little bit more burst and some wiggle than other guys on this roster have. So I think you could definitely see Holmes kind of get some packages, get him the ball out in space, maybe put him in the slot a little bit, make an impact on the return game. So if they're healthy, they should still have a pretty good running back room. And even Devin Ford, a guy you mentioned, Ford really struggled last year when he was thrown into being the lead back, but he has too much talent, in my opinion, to totally count him out quite yet as well.
So I'm looking at these rushing averages. I don't want to play too much into this, but the same thing really happened at Clemson this past season, where Travis Etienne had one of the best rushing averages in the history of college football, 8 yards per carry. He drops to 5.4. Lynn J. Dixon is backups at like 6.5. He drops by 2 yards per carry. You point to the offensive line because you're like, okay, the running backs didn't get worse. And typically, if you look across good teams, and even though Penn State finished 4-5, the talent is obviously there, top 15 to 20 talent at least in the country, and running backs averaging 4 to 4.5 yards per carry. In college football, your lead backs usually more in the 5.5 to 6 range. So issues, run blocking, 3 starters come back, your top offensive recruits coming in as well, and Landon Tangwell. Your thoughts about offensive line?
Yeah, I think last year was kind of just that perfect storm for it to be a mess. That offense line had talent. The 3 of the guys who started on that offense line last year got drafted this past spring. And the other 2, you have Rasheed Walker, who is garnering some preseason All-American type hype, and Caden Wallace, who was a borderline freshman All-American last year. So it wasn't a lack of talent. I think, you didn't have a normal offseason to put in your new offense. You had new offensive line coach in Phil Troutwine, who is widely regarded as one of the bright young star among offensive line coaches. And it got to the point where with the passing game struggling, and I think a lot of that can go back, a combination of Clifford struggles with the type of offense that Kirk Schrocker ran, teams were just loading up the box because they knew Penn State wasn't going to beat them throwing the ball. So I think this season, you look at the offensive line, like I said, Walker and Wallace are back to be your tackles. That's probably the best tackle combination Penn State's had in at least 6 or 7 years. And in that interior, the line should be solid. You have Mike Miranda, who has starting experience, most likely your center. And in the guard spots, you're going to have Juice Scruggs, who this staff is extremely high on. Missed the season 2 years ago because he was in a car accident and had a severe back injury. But he's a guy they're very, very high on. I know they think he has NFL potential. You mentioned Landon Tangwell. I expect him to have an opportunity to earn a lot of playing time at guard. And another guy to watch at guard is going to be Eric Wilson, a graduate transfer they're bringing in from Harvard. When Wilson first entered the transfer portal, he was originally committed to Auburn. And then when Gus Malzahn was fired, he opened his recruitment back up, came down to Penn State and LSU, chose the Nittany Lions. So I think he's going to really add a lot of experience there, and he's a real road grader in there from what I've seen from his time at Harvard. And again, I think a big factor here is now that they've got a full year under their belt working with Troutwine, had a normal offseason with him and a normal offseason to install Yurcich's offense, I think you're going to see Penn State's offensive line take a big step forward this season. And that obviously can only mean good things for the offense, both in the running game and in the passing game. Because just to circle back to Clifford a little bit, when he's had time in a clean pocket in his career, he's looked really good. And now again, most quarterbacks will in that situation, but it just shows the importance of having that good pass blocking. And I think Penn State's offensive line will take a big step forward this year.
Got Marty Leap on the line, breaking down Penn State's offense for us heading to 2021. And of course, August camp is just weeks away. You can join Marty and the rest of the crew there at SB Nation on Black Shoe Diaries. Join us on a regular basis. We're breaking down rosters across the country, offense, defense. We got predictions coming as well. And you guys know the deal with live streams and everything we've got going on here at the Voice of College Football. So please like the video, share the videos out on social media. All right, we go to explosive plays. Jahan Dotson would be the poster child in blue and white for that last year. Led the Big Ten in yardage at receiver, 52 catches in a 9-game season. So you project that out. He's catching 75, 80 balls in a full season, 8 touchdowns. Parker Washington made a splash, 36 and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think Penn State's receiver room definitely has a chance to take a big step forward this year too. Taylor Stubberfield in his second year as wide receiver coach. So far, that's looked like an absolute home run of a hire for Penn State. I know a lot of people in the program and fans alike were very surprised Dotson chose to come back for a senior season over going pro. That'll be a big boost for them. Like you said, he was a guy last year when they had explosive plays. Typically, it was Dotson. You get him the ball in space, you let him make guys miss, and he's a very fluid route runner, just great athlete. Parker Washington is another guy they're very high on. Never going to blow you away with his athleticism or speed, but he's just a technician at the receiver position. He's a guy actually a lot of people compared to Stubblefield during his playing time at Purdue when Stubblefield, when he graduated, held the Big Ten record for most career receptions. Just he's never going to blow you away, like I said, but he's going to run crisp routes. He's going to get open. He's going to catch the ball. And another guy to watch at receiver this year is going to be true sophomore Keandre Lambert-Smith. He came in the same recruiting class as Washington. And even though Washington made the impact right away as a true freshman, I think Lambert-Smith's probably the guy with the higher ceiling. Another guy who's extremely explosive on the outside. Another one that was a big recruiting win for the Nittany Lions. I know Clemson went hard after Lambert-Smith, and a lot of people thought he was going to wind up being with Clemson. And to Penn State's credit, when he took his official visit, they blew him away and won that recruitment. I think you could really see Lambert-Smith start to take a step forward this year and provide some explosiveness to that receiving group. And I think one other thing to watch in the receiving game this year is going to be the tight ends. They have a really good group of tight ends with Brenton Strange and Theo Johnson. Johnson is my personal pick for a breakout player this year for the Nittany Lions when we've been doing that on Black Shoe Diaries. Actually, people in the program have said they believe Theo Johnson is the best tight end they have had since James Franklin got here. And when you consider that would mean they think he's better than Mike Gesicki and Pat Freiermuth, that is saying a lot. So I think Johnson and Strange will be a really good tight end duo as well. And I wouldn't be shocked to see them run a lot of 12 personnel in the red zone with both Strange and Johnson on the field to try and help fix a lot of those red zone woes of last year.
Freiermuth, obviously off to the NFL, caught 23 passes, a bit nicked up last year. So that could be a blessing in disguise in regards to a lot of these guys, Strange in particular, getting playing time at the tight end spot. Anything else on the offense, Marty, that we've missed? Your projection on just you've given us a tremendous look, but in regards to, you seem to be optimistic that the pieces are in place to see a jump forward.
Yeah, I think, as a Penn State fans, maybe cautious optimism just because we've seen the inconsistency from Clifford so much the last 2 years, but there's definitely reasons to be optimistic. You have a good running back group. So I expect the offensive line to take a big step forward. You've got some playmakers at receiver. You've got good tight ends. And now you have one of the best offense coordinators in the country. Hoping it can be similar to the Joe Moorhead effect when he came in and this offense took off and you had the deep plays, you had the explosive plays, but it's all going to fall on Clifford. And I also think with this offense, we're going to learn a lot quick. You start the year at Wisconsin. Game 3, you bring Auburn into Beaver Stadium. Those are two teams are always going to play stout defense. And even in between them, you play Ball State, which may not sound like much, but Ball State won the MAC last year, and I think they returned like 21 starters. So that's not going to be your typical Ball State that's just going to roll over and die for you. So I think this offense, I'm cautiously optimistic we see a big improvement from it. And I also think we're going to learn a lot in the first 3 games.
Great breakdown, Marty. You can join Marty and the rest of the team there at Black Shoe Diaries on SB Nation, talking Penn State football on a regular basis and the entire sports program as well. Marty, we appreciate you stopping by.
Absolutely, Mark. Always enjoy it.